I hope you all are enjoying this particular program course on innovation and entrepreneurship. So in this, as you know, if you go for the entrepreneurial journey, fund is a basic requirement. Without fund, you cannot do anything. Now, from where you will arrange your fund, as I have already discussed that first is through Triple F, where family and friends, they play very important role. And after that, another part is if you go for debt financing, I think that Mr. Satender from Kite Incubation Center, he has covered very nicely about the debt financing. That is how you can go and you can ask for different type of loans. And now the third part is alternate investment fund. In that particular alternate investment fund, the role of angel investors, venture capitalists, private equity, cornerstone investors, anchor investors, and even foreign portfolio investors, and then after share market, everything comes. But beginning may start from angel investors or Series A funding by any venture capitalist or any private equity firm. Now, when you think that your valuation of your startup project, it has reached to that level where you can ask, or where the valuation you can show to the investors in the way that their investment will give a good ROI, that is return on investment on the project where these people are investing, then you can go for alternate investment fund. But when you go and discuss your project with these people, there are number of negotiations. You show different aspects which are linked with the valuation of your project, and you try to give exact criteria that how you are saying that the valuation of your project is of 1 crore of rupees or 10 crore of rupees or 100 crore of rupees. For that, the first document which is signed or may not be signed by the promoter of the startup and the investors, that is known as what? Term sheet. Now, term sheet is basically not any legal document, but it is only this, that on what kind of terms entrepreneur, that is promoter of the startup, and the investor, they are agreeing. So there are many terms in the term sheet, just like vesting and the vesting period, or what would be the tag along rights, or what would be the drag along rights, preemptive rights, and then after ROFO, that is right to first offer, or ROFR, that is right to first refusal. Who are the selling investors? Who would be the third party buyer? Who would be non-selling investors? So everything, many of the things are there in the term sheet. And once term sheet is finalized in between entrepreneur and investors, the documents which are signed generally, these are NDA, that is NDA is non-disclosure agreement, or maybe after that we can sign SPA, that is share purchase agreement, or SHA, that is shareholders agreement. Maybe one step ahead to that, that is share subscription agreement, or maybe share subscription agreement comes shareholders agreement, and after that in the last we sign NCA, that is non-complete agreement. So we are pleased to have with us Mr. Shadab. Mr. Shadab is a person of finance. He is having very good understanding about the negotiations with the investors, how to have a very good term sheet. Bargaining power of entrepreneur would be there, and at the same time, bargaining power from the investors, that would be there. Shadab is presently working as Chief Executive Officer with a Delhi college, that is Acharya Narendra Dev College Incubation Center, that is InStart Foundation. Shadab, on behalf of IGD2W Innovation Foundation, it is our honor to have you among us, and I welcome you to take up your session. And please enlighten all of us, to me and to all the participants, about the inputs which should keep in our mind before we go and we deal with investors.
Thank you so
Please,
much, sir.
Shadab.
Thank you, Dr. Arora. Good evening, everyone. And thank you, Dr. Arora, for actually setting the context as to what we are going to discuss and what are the various elements while considering fundraise. So that actually sets the tone for this session today. And I've tried to list down the things that I intend to uh, discuss today. So very basic, starting with some elementary. So please pardon me if there is some repetition, things that you already know, already been discussed in previous sessions. But notwithstanding that, there are various rounds. You already know, I think Dr. Arora would have enlightened you on what is seed round, what is a pre-seed. In fact, when you are incorporating a company, you are just tapping into your own resources, family, friends, and your own savings, right? So, so that is the starting of the journey. And after that, any fund that comes, any fund which is coming outside this natural pool, which is your own fund and the family and friend, it could be an incubator fund, it could be some HNI who thinks that this is an idea I can support, also qualifies in the seed stage. Generally, so before I go into defining each item, so this is broadly I intend to cover today. What are the various rounds, what are the various funding instruments which are in vogue, which are continuously getting evolved, because this evolution is dependent on the statutory environment that we operate. Certain things, certain fancy words, certain fancy arrangements are available outside India. For instance, US has a very active environment wherein a lot of experimentation is done so far as the arrangements are concerned. In India are to the extent they are a little prohibitive in that sense. So concept wise, things remain the same. We have to do things in the environment that we operate, in the legal and statutory environment. Then certain important elements we need to understand when we are talking about cap tables. What is valuation? How cap tables are evolved? What is pre-money cap table? What is post-money cap table? How are they different with each other? And why? And most important, why is it important for you to know this, right? And lastly, I would touch upon term sheet for like Dr. Arora just mentioned. Term sheet is basically agreeing to broad terms of the engagement, right? Taking the example of a marriage, it is like a prenuptial agreement. And it is not the marriage itself, it is not the wedding itself, it is just a step before the final consummation of the marriage. So term sheet sets the tone for the arrangement that is being discussed, and we will be talking about important definitions. Why is it important for you to know? Because in all probability, whenever you are reaching a stage where an investor is so advanced as to his getting you to sign a term sheet, you will also be guided by certain professionals, and and therefore it is not necessary for you to be an expert on term sheet, but certain points you need to understand, and you should be mindful whenever you are discussing these elements. Uh, so broadly divided into two parts, I will be discussing these first. Funding round, again, like I said, any round of funding which is happening uh, at a stage where you are still experimenting, trying out, trying to understand the traction, iterating your product, and it is generally it is a pre-revenue stage. There could be instances where even during the early traction or early iteration stage, the organization would have started to make small revenue. But largely for most organizations, most startups, it would be a pre-revenue stage. So that broadly is getting classified under the seed round, right? And these are all very convenient terms devised. It is not as if that it is hard coded that this round is a seed round, the other round is a series A or B. So it is just a name given for convenience sake. So whatever is happening at a pre-revenue stage, less traction, early stage, it is seed. Something happening in between a seed and a series A. Series A generally is a big institutional investor coming and doing a funding round. Before that, there could be an intermediate round, which generally is called as pre-series A round. So nomenclature wise, it is not, it is not very important to understand why it is called pre-series or why is it called series A. It is just name given to each round, right? Certain instruments that have been in vogue in the West has been, so the ideal situation is that I am an investor, you are a promoter, you ask me money, I say, okay, I'm coming up with 1 crore rupees, I want 10% of your equity. So this is absolutely simple. It's plain vanilla model of funding, and I'll be showing it in as an illustration also. Uh, but there are occasions when people don't agree on valuations. So I am saying I am valuing, I am an investor, you are in need of a fund. I say that I value your company at 1 crore, I'm giving you 10 lakh rupees, give me 10%, right? So you may say, okay, 10 lakh rupees. I say 10 lakh rupee. Sorry, the promoter might say that 10 lakh rupees is fine, but I don't agree with that 1 crore valuation. So in that case, an instrument or a media had been created and largely very prevalent in the West, which is called SAFE, which is a simple agreement for future equity. So I am valuing a company at a certain level. The promoter is not in agreement. He's saying it is higher valued. We say, okay, let's agree that this is the amount that will go to you, but we are not putting a value to that. So that takes the shape of a convertible share. So it is an, or it is also called convertible bonds, right? Why I'm not calling it convertible bond here is that since we are taking the example of US, it is a bond. The nature is in a form of a bond, but there is a promise of it getting converted into a into the shares at a later stage when that startup is going to raise a second round of funding from an entity which is going to go into a detailed evaluation process. So this early stage investor says, I'm not comfortable with the valuation you are giving. You are not comfortable with the valuation that I'm giving. So let's wait for somebody else who comes in and values it, and then I will agree to that, right? And now coming to the Indian context, a simple convertible share is not allowed as far as the Indian company laws are concerned. So what happens is that this money that goes into it, it is treated as a debt. It is treated as a bond. So there is a small interest component associated because accounting entries have to be made as to what is this money that has come in. So it is treated as convertible bonds with a coupon value. Coupon value is the interest that is going to go there. Now, this so the promoter might say that why should I be paying you interest? I am already giving you an option to get this converted into shares. So just to comply with the norms, a very small percentage. So it could be 0.1% per month, which will be cumulative to 1.2% per annum. Kind of a coupon rate is given. It is given only to comply with the law, right? In the Indian context. Now, when the second round of funding comes, and even when this particular convertible share gets converted, it is converted into a preference share. So I hope you all understand the difference between a preference share and a common share. If not, I will just briefly talk about it. Common share are the shares which are subscribed initially by the promoters. Preference shares are generally taken by the investors who are coming later on. The difference is the preference share will always have a precedence over common share. What does it mean? It means that in case of a situation of a liquidation of the company goes bankrupt, the assets are liquidated, these set of shareholders will get preference towards getting paid to the extent of their equity first before it goes to the common stockholders. So that is the difference between preference share and the common shares. Okay, so any questions on this? So, I'm not going in doing a deep dive into this. If anyone has any questions on this, I think we can discuss this a little deeper. but this will get touched when I'll be talking about the illustrations. Should I move on? I get some.
Yes, sir, I think we can.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so next is the cap tables and the valuation. Okay, so valuation generally, like I just mentioned, a simple scenario wherein I approach somebody, and this somebody could be HNI, but because at the very early stage you will not be very attractive to a angel investor or a VC fund or even AIF. AIF is alternate investment funds, right? Alternate investment fund, like Dr. Arora just mentioned, it is actually a vehicle that has been created specifically for this. So instead of private equity firms and big VC organization whose ticket size is so they will not touch anything below 100 crores, for example, or take the example of SoftBank, they don't touch anything below 200 crores. So what happens to the people who are raising money at a very early stage, whose requirement is, let's say, $1 million, 7 crore rupees, 5 crore rupees? So for that, or even a lower amount, 1 crore, 2 crore fundraise. So this is being serviced by HNIs, by angel investors, by a group of angel investors pooling their resources and funding. And this arrangement has now been officially declared or given a statutory blessing in the name of alternate investment funds. Just to give you a brief background, AIF, the minimum requirement for any entity to set up an AIF is 5 crore rupees. So I gather 5 people who contribute 1 crore each, and we collectively go to SEBI, take the license for AIF, and then we are good to go and start investing based on our appetite, sector preference, and so on and so forth. So that broadly is what AIF is. So it is just one vehicle, one way of pooling investor money and investing in various opportunities. To illustrate pre-money and post-money cap tables and valuations, I will just move to a different. Just let's stop this first. Yeah. So I've done this on an Excel. So generally, when a company is incorporated, this is how it looks like. Okay, I'm sure everyone would have seen this. I'm assuming that there are 2 founders, both have decided to split the initial subscription into equal parts, and assuming a 10 rupee share value for the initial amount. Because 1 lakh, why 1 lakh? Because 1 lakh is the minimum requirement to incorporate a company in India, right? So what happens is 10 rupee per share divided between the two, 5,000 shares each. Total shares that is issued is 10,000. The value of the shareholding becomes 1 lakh. That is to begin with. Now imagine a situation when at a seed stage, I'm calling this seed stage, given the context that I've already discussed, it is a stage where it is still pre-revenue. There are no numbers based on which some valuation can be done, right? There are no legacy so far as sales are concerned. There are no projections that can be made based on this legacy of certain sales for a 3 months, 2 months, 6 months, right? So therefore this valuation becomes a guessing game. And to add a caveat, all valuations are a guessing game. All valuations, whether it is the valuation of OYO or the valuation of my incubating company, all are guessing game, and it will always be different from the one who's evaluating, right? Because they will have certain insights. They will look at that particular enterprise venture with their eyes, their understanding of that business and the potential for it to grow. So that these are the certain components. So that is the reason why perhaps an Indian investor might be valuing a company low, but suddenly a soft bank will come and say, look here, I am valuing you at like $1 billion, but my condition is that you will have to commit going global, for example, right? So not every investor will come with that insight. So whoever comes will try to look at that particular venture with his own understanding and insight into the business, right? So it is a guessing game. But coming back to our discussion, that we are at a pre-revenue stage, at a very early traction stage, or maybe at a development stage, right? And this investor comes and says, fine, you have a requirement of 10 lakh rupees. I'm giving you 10 lakh rupees, but I'm valuing it, but I want 10%. Forget about what I'm valuing. He says 10% chahiye, 10 lakh rupees dete. So by a reverse calculation, the valuation becomes 1 crore, right? So what will happen? So this is how the calculation will pan out. He says, I want, after the shares are issued, my value, my shareholding in your company should be 10%. Simple calculation, reverse calculate karke, he gets 1111 shares, right? If you look at these numbers, so the total share issued from 10,000 becomes 11,111, and the valuation becomes close to 1 crore. So this 900 rupees is just because of the, I've not rounded it off. Okay. So this is the valuation. He said his value of his contribution becomes 10 lakh, and the founders have a valuation of their holding of 45 lakh rupees each. Okay. So you'll have to please ignore the mess my laptop is in. Just a moment. Okay, so normally if you will search this is stage, so there are two stages. Seed fund stage, like I was mentioning, that somebody offers me a certain amount of money and he says that I want this equity, and you don't have an option, you agree, right? There could be a second scenario. Second scenario is that you don't agree. You say, no, I think my venture has a potential and I am valuing my venture much more than your valuation of 1 crore rupees. So let's agree on an arrangement. You give me funds and we will go by the valuation which comes later on. And when is this later on? This later on is a future fundraise whenever that happens, right? Now, if I am from the promoter's perspective, this is a great thing to do. But from the investor perspective, there is a huge risk. And what is the risk? The risk is that maybe the next round, when this happens, the valuation becomes too big. Now, suppose the valuation of this venture in the next round of fund becomes 10 crores. So what will my investment of 10 lakh rupee be? Just 1%, right? So in that case, what they do is, as a safeguard against this risk, what they do is they put a discount factor. So there are two options. One, I say that whatever future valuation comes, I will take a discount of, let's say, 20%. There can be another option. There can be another condition also, that I am going to put a valuation cap on this. Now, what is valuation cap? Valuation cap is, irrespective of how the company gets valuated at the next level, my valuation will not go, let's say, 1.5 crores. Okay. Now, if the company gets valuated at 5 crore, it would be the old investor cannot say that please don't take this money. It is getting a higher valuation and my interest is getting harmed. He will say, okay, fine, you please take that money at that valuation, but the share that will be issued to me will be issued based on these conditions, depending on how they negotiate. It could be, in some cases, it is an and condition, 20% discount and valuation cap. Other options are, one of the option is taken, either a discount is taken or a valuation cap is taken. For convenience sake, in this example, I'm only taking the discount route that has been opted. Okay. Now these two people agree that these investor and the founders agree that let's put it at 20% discount at the future valuation. 10 lakh is invested. So you notice there nothing changes. There is no change, right? The things remains the same. In the books, it will be shown as it is convertible bonds against future fund in future, right? Now go to the next level. Now what happens? The Series A stage comes. I'm calling it Series A only for the convenience sake. Next round comes, the new investor values the company at 5 crores. Okay. Commits investment of 1 crore. Okay. Now what will happen? Now, of course, there will be disclosures that we already have raised money from a seed investor on this condition. So the first step in that will always be that the seed investor's convertible bond will be converted to equity. Now you notice how this will pan out. How will this entire calculation be done? Seed investor gets share with a discounted valuation of 20%. The valuation was done at 5 crore. His valuation will become 4 crores. So each share. So what is this each share? Earlier, the number of shares are 10,000 only. 10,000 share, and this is a P. So this is the reason why it is important to understand the difference between a money valuation and a post money valuation. When the money valuation is happening, it is always at the pre-money stage, at this stage. How many shares this company has? This company has 10,000 issued shares. These 10,000 issued shares are being valued at 5 crores. Okay. Now, which means that I, as an investor, am agreeing to buying your shares at 5,000 rupees, right? In simple terms, in simple mathematical terms. But for this investor, because he has an agreement that it will be discounted at 20%, for him, the same share will cost 4,000 rupees. He had given 10 lakh rupees, simple division, 10 lakhs divided by 4,000 turns to 250 shares. He gets 250 shares. Now, just I will stop here, take you back to what had happened earlier. Do you notice? In this case, because this person had to agree on a valuation that was given by the investor, he ended up actually giving 10% of his equity. In this case, what is happening? He is only diluting 2.44%, right? So this kind of arrangement is always in the interest of the founders and promoters. Now, once this step is, any confusion, any doubt, please ask. I'm assuming that everyone is understanding everything. So
here one question, sir.
Sure.
Sir, in the just if we move slightly up, the for the initial investor, the founders and the initial investor here, sir. If you go down a little bit in the second example, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. So we have made that 100%. So basically, founder 1 and founder 2 have got 48 and 48%, and 2.5% the seed investor has got.
Right.
Now, if the valuation, the Series A investor valuation, how that will come into the picture? Because now this is already 100%.
It has to be 100% all the time. I'll just show it to you. Let me go down again on this. So now the second step happens. So this first step will happen. Both the things will happen simultaneously, but so far as the calculations are done, it will be done in these two steps. Now you notice, so there is some mistake. This has to be 250. I'm so sorry.
Hello.
Just a moment. I'm not able to change this number. I'm so sorry for this, but this is 250. Okay, this 250 that has been issued to the seed investor, this remains here exactly the same. So what happens is in the second step, what will happen is Series A investor has valued it at 5 crore, 10,000 share, which means he has valued it at 5,000 rupees. He's committing 1 crore. So how many shares he will get? He will get 2,000 shares. So his percentage will actually in the cap table be at 16.32%. It will be a little different because this 250, if I change, it will be a little different, but more or less, this will be the calculation. Now, is that clear, your doubt?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So this is what is happening, and both the things would be happening at the same day. It is not as if one will be happening a week before the second step. It will happen exactly the same day, or maybe at an interval of 1 or 2 days.
Sir,
But-
here one query, sir. The since you have shown it in the Excel, is there some formula by which we can do it in one step? Say some special formula is there for all this?
I have actually used a formula. If you are able to see this formula, just a moment. So generally, this is how the formula is calculated. I'll try to show you. Sorry. ये मेरा, I'm so sorry, my F2 करेंगे तो आ जाना चाहिए ना. This is how your numbers of share will get calculated. This is conditioned to the fact that my percentages is getting frozen. But if my percentage is not getting frozen, then I will do a simple calculation that whatever the valuation is there, I will divide it with the number of shares which are there before this round. You will understand what I'm saying. Suppose in this example we have taken, if the investor would have agreed on this, if this was the condition. So when the next round of funding would have come, I'm talking about this one, when the seed investor has taken 1111 shares. So what will happen the next time when the Series A investment comes and he commits 5 crore valuation and investment of 1 crore. So this will be divided 11,100 shares will get divided instead of 10,000. It will be like this. So 1 crore divided by so sorry for this. I'll divide it like this. Okay, I think this will work. Instead of dividing, so here what has happened is that we are dividing the share. This is the share that the person is having or the company is having when the Series A round is happening. That is the reason why the calculation 5 crore is getting distributed in this 10,000 share. Had this been the situation, the calculation would have been 5 crore divided by 11,111. I think I made myself clear.
Yes, sir. It's clear. Thank you very much, sir. And can you please share this Excel with us, sir? It's very useful, sir, in understanding.
I can do that. I actually wanted to show you by changing the numbers, but my keypad is not working. I'm so sorry for this.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. So coming back to the example that we were taking, so this is how the cap table will look like after the infusion of funds. Showing you the wrong sheet. Sorry. Okay. Now we're looking at the right one. So if you notice, so simple arithmetic tells us that the pre-valuation, if I come back to this level, the pre-valuation level was 1 lakh because there was no change. The company incorporation value was 1 lakh. The new investor comes, he commits, he values at 5 crore. So the valuation should become 5 crore 1 lakh. But that is not what is happening. If you notice post equity, post money, that cap table will look like this. The value of the share has been valued at 500 rupees, right? And simple calculation, the promoter's value of shareholding becomes 1.5 crores. Okay. Seed investor who had invested 10 lakh rupees, his investment has grown and become 12 lakh 80,000 rupees. And of course, because he has invested 1 crore, his value is at 1 crore. So the total value of the company, the post-cap valuation becomes 6.12 crores instead of 5 crore valuation, which is a pre-money valuation. So that is the difference between a pre-money valuation and the post-money valuation. The important point that I wanted to make was that as founders, you will have to be very mindful when you are committing any shares to people coming at early stage, because early stage, the problem with both you as well as the investor is that there is no benchmark. There is nothing on the basis of which a valuation can be done. It is always a gut feeling. You have a gut feeling that you are going to grow very big. That person we will try to mitigate his risk and would want to get the maximum value of the money that he's trying to put. So to strike a balance, this is one of the mode that has been employed. I'll quickly show you. This is a sample term sheet that I wanted to share. Not every part is important for you to become an expert of, because you will be advised by lawyers, chartered accountants who understand this pretty well. But certain parts, like Dr. Era was mentioning, is very important to understand. He was talking about certain documents that need to sign. Term sheet itself is a non-binding document. It is a document which two people have voluntarily agreed on certain terms. They may go ahead with that, they might not go ahead with that. It is not, you cannot take any investor to court that you have valued me at this valuation and you have committed this shares, please do it. He will say, I will not do it because in my due diligence, we have found certain deficiencies, so we cannot go ahead with that. So it is a non-binding document, right? Most important thing to understand it, but it's a very important document because the other definitive documentation happens on the basis of what we agree on the term sheet. That's the reason why it is important. Now you notice point 1.5, which is valuation. Like mentioned earlier, always the valuation which will be mentioned in the term sheet will always be a pre-money valuation. So the table which exists at the stage where the shares are still in the stage of without the money coming in, the person is trying to put a value, and that is the reason. That is why when you are trying to calculate the per share value, you will divide the total valuation that is given with the number of shares that is currently has been issued, right? So that is it is always mentioned in money valuation term. Then you talk about definitive documentation. What are these definitive documents? Let's go before let's go to definitive document before we go to any other. 5. This is definitive documentation. After this, after the due diligence is complete, after they are satisfied that yes, now they would want to go ahead, these things will happen simultaneously. Shareholders agreement will happen. Share subscription and shareholders agreement will commence, and this is going to be the document which will enable all the other documentation that generally there is a time assigned that has to be within 90 days. The signing of the term sheet would be 120 days, allow both the parties to do the due diligence upon each other. There could be certain articles of within the article of association that might be required to be changed because of the certain conditions that the investor wants to put in. And all these documentation collectively are called definitive documentation, right? It culminates in actual transfer of issuance of share to the new investor and fund flowing into the organization or the venture. Instruments again. So this instrument, in this case, the document that I'm showing you, this was a simple equity share transfer term sheet. Here, the terms could be convertible debentures, CCPS could be there, compulsorily convertible preference shares, right? So, so there are various terms are put in. So instruments, whatever instruments you have decided based on your requirement will form this section. You define the proposed transaction. There are certain cases where are even for angel round, there are occasions when apart from the investment an equity that is being taken from the for the investment, there is a small equity that is being taken, that is taken as advisory equity also. Incubators do it all the time. Lot of angel investors also do it, because apart from funds, they also bring lot of expert advice to the startup, and they charge equity. So it is not conditional. It is an item which is often there, and if you agree to give certain equity for the advisory part of it, you can do it. Yeah. So one important thing that happens often, this comes as a requirement from the investor, is how the board composition will happen and all the other related incidental matters. So they may demand that there will be an investor director. Now this investor director is generally a person nominated by the fund, or if we are talking about a single investor, he himself will come. Or if we are talking about an AIF, this could be the person who's actually taking care of your account when your investment. So he will be the person who will be responsible, reporting back to the fund what is happening with this particular startup, how are their growth plans progressing, and so on and so forth. So for all practical purposes, he becomes the manager or general manager with respect to that investment from that fund. So that could be an AIF, that could be an angel network. So angel network also, when they pool in their funds and invest into an entity, they assign one person and make him responsible for that particular investment. So he takes care of all the relationship between the fund and the investee company. Sometimes investors also demand that there be one observer assigned also. They take that as an option, that whenever a board meeting is there, apart from the investor director, they want one person to observe the proceedings of the board. So so this is entirely fluid. So this person doesn't have a voting right in the board of director meeting, but he is just an observer. He reports back to the people who is required to be informed, namely the people who have invested. So apart from, so it is like a check and balance. So they want to make sure that this investor director is also acting in the manner that he is supposed to. And for that reason, they may require one board observer to be assigned, right? So preemptive right. What is preemptive right? So preemptive right and anti-dilution protection. So incidentally, all these points that we are discussing right now are points which are very important from the investor's perspective. There will be points which will be important for the from the standpoint of the founder, and I'll be talking about that. But these are important points, and they make it conditional. In 99% of the term sheets, you will find this. Preemptive right and anti-dilution protection basically are hand to hand, which means that whenever there is a future issue of shares to any third party, so what will happen if the company issues any future shares to anyone, the investors shareholding will go down. So they want a condition that my shareholding should not go down, both in terms of percentage as well as the value of the shares. And they are more concerned in terms of value of the shares, because what happens is, suppose you issue someone an equity at a valuation which is lower than the previous valuation. So automatically, for all the people who are invested or the promoters, their valuation will come down. So this investor will say, okay, fine, if you are agreeing to a valuation which is lower than the previous fundraise, what you will do is you will issue us extra shares, so that whatever deficit that has happened is made good by the extra share that is being issued. So these are supplementary rights which an investor wants to exercise. Promoters lock-in is that, so it is like a safeguard again for the investor, that he doesn't want a situation where the promoters suddenly one fine morning sells all his stock to somebody else and runs away. And these people who are investors, they don't understand the business. They are at the mercy of the new person who is coming into the company. So they want a lock-in period, that before that you will not be entitled to transfer your shares to anyone directly or indirectly. So they can assign a specific period, and that becomes the lock-in period, right? Dr. Arora was mentioning about the right of first offer. So which means is that whenever the investor, now this is a right which is for both the parties, promoters as well as investors, right? So it is protecting both the parties. So whenever someone wants to share, the selling investor intends to sell part or all of his shareholding, so the other party, the promoters, so they will have always the right of first offer. They will be offers first, that do you want to buy this, before taking it to a third party. So this primarily protects the promoters. Now what happens is, the promoter might agree that, okay, fine, we are purchasing. Suppose they are not purchasing, then the investors are free to take it to somebody else. So they cannot simply go, investor cannot simply go and sell it to somebody without the refusal of the promoters. Similarly, the investors also have the right of first refusals. Tag along right. So tag along right is basically promoters lock-in. So what happens is that whenever just a second. So whenever the investor is trying to offload his equity and the rights are not exercised, and the person is going ahead with selling it to a new entity, the promoters will always have an option to take along with them, take along with the investors, whatever in the proportion of their holding, they will have to tag along in that transaction. So it is not that only one set of investors are able to sell without any benefit accruing to the promoters. So basically it protects the right of the promoters. Now, while I was discussing about the cap table and the valuation, one thing I actually wanted to talk and missed was the ESOP. In most cases, when Series A kind of funding is happening, there will always be a condition that an ESOP pool is created before the fund is infused. The reason for that is that if it is done afterwards, because ESOP or a sweat equity will be without any consideration, the valuation will go down and the dilution will hamper the interest of the investor. So they will make it conditional that ESOP pool has to be created before the investment happens, right? And generally it is in the range of 10% or 20%. So condition is put that it will not go beyond 10%. So generally this is done as a condition by the investor, that you have to do it beforehand. Affirmative voting rights. What is affirmative voting right? That the investor who's coming, he is not going to be involved in the day-to-day functioning of the businesses, but there will be certain decisions. For example, some capital expenditure is to be made, some new acquisition is to be made. Suppose you decide to buy out a competitor, small competitor, you buy out because there is some complementary services that he's doing. For doing any such transaction, and these transactions are defined, that acquiring a new company, buying shares, or making any capital investments, buying property, so on and so forth, this has to have a affirmative vote by the investor. So this is again to protect the investor's interest, that whatever is happening, they are part of these crucial decision which have certain implication on the finances. And the list with respect to what will be covered under these affirmative rights is to be decided between the two parties. So there is no comprehensive list available that you have to take it as it is. So you can choose whatever you want to include or exclude in that. Then these are basically exit mechanism. They are defined in this particular case. It was defined that within 5 years of the closing, company will go for an initial public offering, but initial public offering might not be the best or might not be a viable exit all the time, because the market environment, what is the acceptance of IPO, and so on and so forth. For example, in past 4 or 5 years, small company, I mean a new startup, a company which was started 7 years, 8 years before, I have not seen any IPO happening, right? Even the big ones, the unicorns, they have not gone to the market. So IPO in most cases have not happened, and this is a phenomena which is globally true. Number of IPOs happening are getting reduced. Maybe the gestation time has increased. Perhaps the actual IPO will happen 10 years down the line, 12 years down the line, or 15 years down the line. But in short term, it might not be a viable option. But you can always have this as an option, because it will always be an or condition that the strategic sale of the equity share will happen, and that will give it will create a window for the investor to exit and liquidate their investments. Drag along option, again, it is a protection, like tag along was a protection for the promoters. drag along option is a protection for the investor. So whatever will happen if the promoters are doing, they fail to provide an exit and they are trying to get some, trying to raise some money. So they will always do it in a manner, in the proportion the investor will also be liquidated, or certain exits, partial exits will be provided. Any questions so far?
So one question.
Yeah.
Sir, can I ask?
Yes, yes, please.
Yes, sir. So in the when we have multiple rounds of funding, so we will have multiple term sheets.
Correct.
So the initial term sheets may be very much in the favor of the investor who is doing the initial investment, but how his interests will be protected in the subsequent term sheets? Whether he will be treated as a promoter in the subsequent term sheets, or is there a separate category that yes, he is that investor first and second and that? For example, he has
Understood.
the right to appoint a board observer, board director, but
Correct.
subsequently if a bigger investor comes, he will also have like to have his own directors and observers. So how
Right.
these things are reconciled?
They will all work in conjunction. So what will happen is, so again, like I mentioned, term sheet as a document will expire the moment definitive documentation happens, right? The moment shares are transferred, the moment shareholding agreement gets signed, these documents become just a piece of paper, right? So most important would be the shareholding agreement that has been signed as an outcome of the earlier term sheet that the company has signed. And any agreement which is in currency has to be honored by anybody coming subsequently. So for example, the earlier investors decided that I will have 2 board members, right? And the next round happens, and the new investors say we will have a proportionate representation in the board of, let's say, 1 director per 5% of the holding, right? Or some matrix that they use. So they will enjoy the benefit of the agreement that they are doing, and anyone who's signing will also be mindful of what I have signed earlier. So they will not sign anything which will actually contradict any of the terms which has been signed as a definitive agreement, as a shareholder agreement. And when this happens, any future or subsequent round of funding happens, all these documents, all these agreements are vetted, they are evaluated, if required. So there could be a possibility that I am a new investor. I say, as part of my due diligence, please show me all the shareholder agreement that you have signed, right? And I get, let's say, 2 sets of shareholder agreement for 2 earlier round of funding. Now, as a new investor entering into the company, I can demand that I want these modifications in this agreement. Okay, and only then I am going to invest. So now it is up to the people, because these 2 people who have signed the earlier agreements, they are part of the company. So if they want this investment round to happen, they will agree, they will discuss, negotiate, and find a middle ground, or simply agree to what has been proposed, right? Once this is all done, if there is some modification done, some restructuring of the board conditions are done, so this has to be reconciled in this manner. I hope I've answered you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Any other question? Because term sheet broadly, whatever I wanted to discuss, I have mentioned. And just to give you what is the flavor of what is happening in reality, each term sheet will be entirely different from the other. So one investor will have a 6-page term sheet, another investor will have a 26-page term sheet, just exaggerating, but I think you understand. Some others might have a single-page term sheet, just a plain simple transaction description. And because they also understand that this is just like just a document which actually builds up to a bigger document. So their bigger concentration is always towards the share subscription and shareholders agreement. They will try to enforce and these whatever terms are there in the term sheet, they actually are translated in the main document. That is the norm what is happening. Any other questions?
Any questions you can put on in chat box or can ask? Sir, I think we are done with the queries.
Yeah, so
So
just in the closing, I would say that each funding round, each investor is different. He will approach your business based on his perspective, his insight, his worldview, and try to. So some of the investors would be great in terms of bringing in money, plus bringing a lot of understanding insight around the business. Some investors would just be there because they are HNIs and they have access to capital, and they would want and these people understand that they would want to sit on the sidelines. They would want the investor, the promoters or the founders to actually play the game and help them grow the money. So every investor, every set of investor will come with a different need, and you have to, in fact, as founders, you should also be very careful who you are choosing as your investor. So there is always a temptation for all entrepreneurs that the first opportunity, the first term sheet which comes to them, they will jump at it and sign. Please don't do it. Please be very mindful that there could be certain traps for you. You try to talk to these people, try to understand what kind of expectation they have, what kind of people they are, and whether there is a good fit between the investor and the investee. This is also very important. It will be very difficult for you perhaps to say no to certain conditions, but a timely no would be better as compared to a problem that you might get into with the investors later on. So choose your investors very well. Be mindful of the difficult conditions in the term sheets. Engage a good advisor, a legal advisor who can help you navigate through these term sheet clauses and the eventual document that gets signed up, so that your interest is protected. Right. So there you will have to, as a promoter, founder, you will have to strike a balance between your interest and the interest of the investor. You will also have to be appreciative of the fact that these people are coming to you with a very important resource, which unfortunately at that point of time you might be lacking, which is capital, right? That's the reason and that's the value that these people bring, and their interest needs to be protected, and they are putting their capital into your venture. So that is a huge validation. Any money coming to a venture is a huge validation of that venture itself, right? More than venture, it is the huge validation on the people who are leading that venture. I see a few questions, chat.
I think, sir, that is me posting the attendance link.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
That is all, Rahul, from my side. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity.
So thanks from our side. on behalf of IGTTW Innovation for taking out time and speaking with the participants and sharing your knowledge.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, and a disclaimer I would want to mention, and I'm doing this at the end. I'm not a professor, so this might not have sounded like a professor kind of a talk, but whatever experience I have gathered, I wanted to share, and these are practical.
No, sir.
I would be glad to take one-on-one discussion with anyone who's interested. Any requirement, any suggestions, I'm happy to connect.
Thank you, sir, for extending the sports to the participants. It's really grateful for them. Thank you, sir, for taking out time.
All right. Happy Diwali to you all. Thank you so much.
Happy Diwali, sir. Happy Diwali. Thank you.